If we can get our fearless leader and worst joke teller in the room to head up front. Worst joke teller in the room, head up front.
Ron Gordon, come sit down.
He said he wanted to stay in the back.
What? Of course he did. Oh. He said he wanted to be in the front row so he could heckle.
It's another good place to be. I'm assuming you guys are
So for the first part of our talent show, we're gonna have Scott Throckmorton come up and do an interpretive dance based on Wagner's.
not Wagner. It's terrible.
The Barber of Seville. Okay. Can everyone hear? How about those of you with hearing problems? Is that all good? Exactly. So welcome to the unveiling of the area CBRE community. What do we have here? It's a
talent profile.
Talent profile.
Says it on the screen.
I thought it was a talent contest, so I'm very disappointed. But we will try to get through the talent profile. That's what we're calling it.
Good job.
Okay. So we're very excited. This report is going to highlight the various attributes that our community has with respect to labor and other institutional assets that really make this a great place to live, work, and especially play. And the play is important as for those of you at home, we're doing this from a group hub. So it's also a fun place to play. And really expose and highlight our area. But speaking of area, with me today is the president, CEO of area, Ms. Danielle Casey. Let's give it up for Danielle.
How many practice takes to get him to get our company name right? Because he's been around so long.
I said area.
You said area. This time. Now, we really appreciate it. This is so cool, y'all. This is the 4th year in a row that we've collaborated on this report, and it makes me realize that I've been here now 3.5 years, and unveiling our first joint report was the first public or in-person event. And it's a place where I met a lot of my board members for the first time in person after coming here and basically being on lockdown when I got here in October of 2020. So
We did not realize she was this short.
yeah. I had one board member come to my house and I opened the door and she's, Cynthia Schultz, she's smaller than me or about the same size. She goes, "You're little." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So, no, this is really and truly one of our top used marketing documents. We want it to be a resource for anybody trying to do economic development or support it in our community. It's also been a really, really great resource and tool for companies that are trying to recruit talent, because it's a comprehensive document that talks a lot about the community. You'll see all the information here in a little bit, but what's really cool about it is we're using a lot of engaging narratives, interactive design features, excessive almost interactive design features that really just make this a fun document to play with. A lot of great testimonials and video. And I cannot give it up enough for the CBRE team that has evolved it into something truly unique and highly engaging. We're so grateful. So I do want to acknowledge some of the area staff. Frankly, everybody on area staff, no matter their role, makes it possible for us to do everything we do. But I do want to point out Chad Matheson, our Senior Vice President, Antonio Pernillo, our Senior Analyst, who really worked on the data heavily, and also from CBRE, Kim Vanderpool, over here trying to be subtle and humble. Their Senior Marketing Manager, Michael Stopka, am I saying that right? Sure is not here. The Senior Graphic Designer, Julie Berkenkamp, we're giving a shout out on the web. Copywriter, Nick Linda. So the collaboration really has been an amazing partnership, and we're super excited for this to continue to spur success. So back over to you, Jim, to start taking us through this content.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I did want to say, Area has been a great partner for all of us for many years, particularly those of us who've been in the business for many years. Their service to our community is invaluable in the business of attracting new companies in, and as a part of the real estate community, we are very grateful to all that Area does to make us look good, and believe me, we need the help. I've lived in Albuquerque for over 35 years now, and I think this is the greatest place in the world to live. And we hope that this publication will convince others of the same. So let's start this off with a little video that our friends at 505 Sunny were the ones that did that.
You did this one.
You're kidding. Come on. We did this?
And one free beer to whoever can guess the narrator.
Okay, let's go with the video. This is exciting now.
One free beer to the first
What is
person.
the spirit of the Southwest? It's living large and small. It's knowing when to do the heavy lifting and when it's time to roll with it. It's that drive to turn up the heat. Well, at least it's a drive. To the beat of our own drums, we push ahead, heart first. We reach for the stars with our feet planted on fertile ground. We live on dry powder, ready to strike a creative spark. But our energy isn't explosive. It's spiritual. constantly painting the canvas of tomorrow. The greater Albuquerque region is the spirit of the Southwest.
That alone should make you want to go. So that's gonna be on the area
It's
website?
gonna be everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere
In the
that you
report,
wanna be?
everywhere. Mhm.
And for those of you on like Insta things, you can probably Insta thing it, like, on the interwebs, so that should be fun.
You're not old.
So as you can see, our community has an awful lot to offer. We've got great talent, we've got great companies. Much of the information that we're gonna go over today is just a highlight of what's in the actual report. The report is much more in-depth, as you'll see when you get into it. But we wanted to just kind of cover a few of the highlights that you may or may not already know. So first of all, our community is growing. We currently have the metropolitan statistical area is 923,000 people. But if you look at a 60-mile driving radius, we have a population of over 1 million people and 200 head of cattle. So this is a 60-minute drive from the Big I. Also, we are in the top 5 in diversity for the state for population. And then our workforce population is tremendous, in the words of someone who just hadn't invented anything. But anyway, an impressive 40% of our working population is of prime working age. But if you look closely at this chart, you'll realize that Scott and I are not in prime working age. Nor is Jim Smith. So there's quite a few. According to our statistics, you are not in prime working age. And I've seen some of your work lately, and I think they're good. Okay. Who was going to do the harassing? Okay, speaking of diversity. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Studies have shown that a diverse workforce is one of the most important factors leading to innovation and growth in companies. With our 63% diversity among our population, we're well above the national average, which is 42%. And of our workforce age population, we are at 60% diversity. All of this is something that many companies are looking for to figure out how to better grow and fit their clientele. Also, our workforce, we're number 1 for female aerospace engineers and operation technicians. Bet you didn't know that. Number 2 for female mechanical engineering techs. Do we have any of those in the? No. And certainly, we are number 1 for female economic development CEOs and presidents.
And back to me then. All right. Thank you, Jim. What makes us special other than Jim? We are the spirit of the Southwest, of course. I love my strips, of course. No, we have been recognized as a leading market in many, many categories in recent years. So what's great about this report, if you're looking for a way to brag about our market, please steal from this, repurpose it, use it. Just to name a few, top 25 emerging market for tech talent. The source is the CBRE 2023 Tech Talent Report, so that works out. I love it when we cite ourselves, right? Yeah. One of the best cities to live and work in is a movie maker. Number 7 on the list of the best 10 cities for recreation. Number 3 for presence of semiconductor manufacturing among similarly sized markets. We are coming up quickly on the heels of our competitor markets, absolutely. And we have the number 1 highest count of jobs for scientific R&D among similarly sized markets. Please use these stats when you're out talking about our community. And then we've got quality of life. We all know that and love that. You just certainly can't beat it. We have a very competitive cost of living, 4 distinct seasons. I was telling my fun personal whining story about how we attempted to go camping this past weekend, and if the leaf spring hadn't broken on the camper, I would have had a great time. Instead, my house is very clean. And our events and entertainment do not disappoint. If your camper's working, you can explore the outdoors pretty much any time of the year. I'm told if you get an all-weather camper, which I'm being asked is if we can get as a family, so we'll see. You can definitely spend all your time looking at local breweries and trying to figure out the best New Mexico IPA. And so there's unbelievable opportunities there. So let's talk about who's moving here. With all of that, it is no wonder that people want to move here among me. I was one of them, right? Coming from, actually,
Jeff,
see
you see this
Sacramento's
one?
not even on there, yeah, see Jeff?
Number
We have some
1,
Phoenix folks, we got other things. These are all the cities where we're seeing the most inbound migration from right now coming to our community. So I'll add that Greater Albuquerque also was recently named one of the top 10 states for inbound moves in the nation. So really exciting. Now we have to talk about educating our workforce, right? So while it's great to have top talent moving into the region, there is a big focus, and there absolutely must be. It is critical. It's critical for every market right now, but ours in particular, that we have to think about how we are educating our community. Are we turning out talent that aligns with the jobs of the future? I got a big nod back there, absolutely, from folks who know. Really critical. With the help of 2 scholarships, the Opportunity Scholarship and the New Mexico Lottery Scholarship, does everybody know about these? Can you recite these? And we need to do that. We need to do a better job of it. I will tell you, when we put this information up in front of clients, they are blown away at the great resource and opportunity this provides for young talent. We've actually seen, because of these scholarships, a 7% increase in college enrollment since 2021 here in New Mexico. We also just created a $959 million trust fund for free college tuition. This is the largest in the nation. The largest in the nation, very impressive. And we also have 5 public high schools that rank in the top 10 nationally. So when we are talking about schools, when we're talking about high schools and K-12, those are things that we need to be bragging about in our market. We all know about the cost of living, so you can see our comparison to the national average. I think this has actually gone down a little bit. One of my previous markers was about 94%. So we're heading in a positive direction in comparison to others, with 100% being the national average. And finally, a lot of that's driven by affordable housing. And while we need as much housing as we can possibly get, and we're being very active in advocating for more housing, it is affordable compared to other markets that we are trying to fight against for employment and for base industries. So 64% actually of the adult population in Greater Albuquerque owns their own home. So with that, Jim, can you talk a little bit about what companies need? What do companies need?
What a company needs, I thought it was what a girl needs.
Country song or the pop song?
The pop song, I don't know. I'm not all that hip on this.
So as you know, one of the largest components of what a company looks for is talent. But the other thing is operating expenses in a different community. And one of the deep dives that we do in this report is comparing what it would cost to operate a office services firm and a manufacturing firm in New Mexico, as well as our Albuquerque region, as well as our competing markets. And we come in pretty favorably for both on the operating cost model. I think that is an important component that we need to make sure that we're letting users know about as they are looking at our market. The other thing is our real estate pricing is competitive. So for the industrial market, the red is high, the bluish is low. We're somewhere in between. Now, fortunately, what we don't do is go into the availability of said space. But on the face of it.
It's a marketing report.
Yes, yes, it is a marketing report. We're proud of it. But we're competitive with our neighboring communities. And then for office, we are very competitive. Some of that's the age of inventory, but it also is a selling point to people looking at coming into our market that our rates are a lot lower than what they're going to find elsewhere in the U.S. So this is really just a broad brush on the report. As you get into the report, you can get there via the website. You can do a direct link to the abq.org/capital report.
We just made sure it works too, so I think we're good.
We've got a QR code, and I'm not sure what that does, but it looks nice. I think aesthetically, Kim did a great job with that. And now, as if we have not bombarded you with enough statistical information, we're going to bring up three of the largest. Oh, we're bringing up Darren.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool. So, let me see if I didn't really redo his bio too much. But with us today to talk about the national market trends, live and in person, we've got the world famous Darren Millat. Not to be confused with Millette, who's in our office.
Can I add that he freaked me out a little bit with his beautiful hair? Maybe this is COVID hair, maybe this is just self-expression, but doesn't look exactly like the photo, that's okay. Looking fancy.
That was his high school year.
Yeah.
Darren is the Vice President of Capital Markets Research at CBRE. In this capacity, Darren leads a local team of capital markets research analysts, works with other members of senior leadership to provide analysis and develop house views of where the market is going. I'm not sure what a house view is, but anyway. So he hails from the great state of Utah, Salt Lake City. He is, don't hold this against him, he's actually a good friend of mine, and is one heck of a good skier. Could probably out-ski some of the elder people here. Ladies and gentlemen, Darren Millat. You want to walk around with this, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I'll walk around. Well, thank you. I'll take, pictures aside, anybody that says I have beautiful hair, I'll take that. But really, really great to be here, and always enjoy my time here in Albuquerque, if not for anything else than, Jim's opening remarks. So we're delighted to be here. But there's a lot going on in today's world, as we all know, and there's a lot of noise, and some things matter, and some things don't matter as much. So we'll try and cut through all of that. But let's go ahead and jump in with just kind of big picture where we're at. And I realize the screen isn't gigantic here. All you have to know is this is looking at short-term policy rates of central banks across the world, okay? And the only thing you really have to know is that we're kind of here, okay? Rates have peaked out. The real question is when do we start seeing rate cuts? Now, the ECB is likely to cut in June. Our call up until recently was that we thought a July cut could still be on the table in the U.S. And even though that's not where the market's at right now, I still think there is a possibility we could see it. We're probably going to be pushing our house view to somewhere around a September cut. The reason why I still say July could be on the table is because we're starting to see some cracks showing in the labor market. And in fact, like even in the retail sector, on the lower end, we're starting to see consumer softness creeping in. So we're not seeing anything like super worrisome, but we are seeing this lagged impact of monetary policy doing exactly what it was intended to do. And so if we see the labor market slowing, which there's some other indicators that are telling us we might see some more slowing. So the last month's jobs report, you'll recall, came in fairly below expectations. That wasn't terribly surprising if you were looking at some of these other indicators. So we might see that. I would say sometime in Q3 is when we're likely to see that first rate cut, another one at the end of the year. So let's keep rolling through here. What does this all mean though? Because when we look at, when we're running all of our models and looking at what impacts commercial real estate and investment and all the rest of it, it's not really the Fed funds, right? Fed funds is an important sort of psychological marker that tells people in our community, hey, the Fed is actually saying the danger of high inflation has largely passed, and so people can deploy capital more comfortably. But what really matters is the 10-year treasury, especially when it comes to investment volume, et cetera, right? And so what do we see for the 10-year treasury? We see it starting to come back down in the second half of the year. We think we're going to kind of be bouncing around this kind of range, I don't know, call it 4.4 to 4.6 for a little while. And then we'll start to see it come down, end up around 4.1% 10-year by the end of the year. And that's actually a level we should start seeing a lot more activity in our sectors across the country, with long-term rates being right there. So this is like disappearing ink, but in electronic form. It's not showing up anywhere. But let's just talk about the key. Yeah, this is an imaginary. There were three boxes here. No, listen. When it comes to a soft landing, the point that I was going to make there is we need to see inflation continuing to come down to give central bankers the cover that they need to begin lowering rates. We do think that that's going to happen. We think we're going to, be well above target at the end of this year, but pretty close to target by the end of next year. Okay. Some key risks to watch. We've got a lot of geopolitical issues that can create a lot of uncertainty. If the economy slows more than anticipated, so we like to say that the lagged impact of monetary policy is kind of like dragging a brick with rubber bands. Nothing really happens until it comes back and smacks you on the back of the head. And that's, this is a possibility that these things are very difficult to calibrate. And so, that's a key risk to watch. But I think we are going to see those inflation numbers coming back in through the rest of the year.
Hey, I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you come up with the word exogenous?
Exogenous.
Did that come from Oxford?
Did they come from Oxford? I went to Cambridge.
Oh, I knew it. Sorry.
No, exogenous was actually invented by the same guy who created the QR code.
Is that? I thought that was a zone.
Okay, let's go on. We kind of got to well, thank you. Okay, let's go to industrial. And we'll entertain this for the rest of the presentation. We'll keep everyone awake at the very least. So, when we're looking at where industrial's at, industrial is just, it's the darling of the industry for a reason. We've had, structural changes in demand, and that's represented by what we're saying here, is that we think that demand is going to stay healthy, in part because of where consumer expectations are. And what are those expectations? If you guys remember, a few years ago, ordering off Amazon, you're like, okay, it'll be here at the end of the week. Nobody wants to wait to the end of the week anymore. I think that's just not the world that we're living in. So that's providing a nice boost to demand. But we've also got, I sort of alluded to geopolitical issues that are out there as well. And companies are taking this very seriously, and this is becoming a tailwind for industrial. And so what we tend to see large corporates doing is employing a strategy that we call China Plus One, where it's very difficult to completely cut China out of supply chains or manufacturing for a lot of folks. Simply because they have the infrastructure they've been built, to export for the last 40 years, and you can't just move operations to Vietnam and Thailand and expect that everything's going to work out really well. So we are seeing people continuing on with China, but they're becoming less reliant on China. So some of that stuff's going to Southeast Asia, a lot of it's going to New Mexico, some of it's even coming back to the States. Now, I don't want to overstate that story. You hear it a lot, and you might see it on 60 Minutes and these kinds of things. It's not huge. It's not totally moving market dynamics quite yet, but it is something to keep an eye on, and it is a tailwind. And then the location optimization, just making sure that goods are where they need to be in order to meet that consumer demand, and also help build in resilience into the supply chain. So where does this leave us? Where do we see this demand materializing in the industrial sector? I think you're going to see a lot more in the way of manufacturing facilities, data centers, and cold storage. Now, in the case of manufacturing, whether you agree with it or not, the federal government has put a lot of money into this sector. In fact, the CHIPS Act, a lot of these things have bipartisan support because of these broader geopolitical issues. And so there's a lot of money out there that's actually subsidizing this stuff. And so when Jim was talking about the need, and others were talking about the need to attract, retain talent, homegrown talent, this is really key because the dollars are out there. The trends are in your favor. It's yours for the taking if you can position the community well enough and show people that, hey, we have the talent, we have the people, we can compete for these large chip plants, various types of manufacturing that's all being subsidized, whether it's green energy, semiconductors, et cetera. And then data centers. I remember when the Facebook deal first happened here and what a big deal that was. These data centers, it's going to be a big story. And in fact, if you look at the sort of trend lines and how much power AI uses and where things are, the amount of power that we're going to need to produce in this country, we might need 25-30% more power. Right? And so places with excess power that are able to supply this, you're going to be able to attract some investment dollars into your community. So, I think these are two areas where Albuquerque's particularly well positioned. Cold storage is, sort of related to some of the other, shopping trends and whatnot. So, but I really think those first two really key areas for Albuquerque. So where does this leave us in terms of the broader industrial market? What do we think? And by the way, we'll make these slides available to anybody afterward who wants them. So because I apologize for the small screen, and you'll be able to see those boxes that disappeared on the other side. So that'll be exciting for all of you. It'll be a nice surprise. So we think leasing activity is going to remain quite positive. We think it's going to be up about 5% year over year. That's a little bit slower than last year. So a lot of folks probably heard of a large logistics company in their earnings saying, we actually think leasing is going to be slowing down, and people thought, oh no, the industrial market's rolling over. That's not really the case, but we do see it coming back down to sort of levels that are more reasonable in terms of growth. The other thing we're seeing is, look, we had a wave of new supply, particularly industrial and multifamily. Those were the two sectors where we saw a lot of new supply coming online nationally. But we think that supply has crested, and we're seeing completions coming back down. But this is setting us up for something really interesting in industrial nationally, because as interest rates climb and that new construction tax sort of shut off, but we still see that there's very healthy demand. It's setting us up for a period of tightness in inventory in the market over the next, call it 48 months. And so we think that, as interest rates start coming back down, and that dynamic becomes more apparent with developers, we're going to start seeing more groundbreakings toward the end of the year. But because of that new supply, we see vacancy rates creeping up a bit, and asking rates or taking rates still climbing 6 to 8% for the year. So still a very, very healthy outlook generally for industrial. Now, we'll jump over to the office side of things. And here it becomes a little bit more complicated. And the way I'll break this down is with 3 trends if we go to the next slide here. And so for those of you who can't read it, the main 3 trends are right up here. And it's hybrid work, taking, call it a flight to quality, and construction dropping off on the office side as well. So hybrid work, we all know things have changed in the pandemic. Heaven knows my hair has. But it's not just my hair, it's the way that we work, right? And so, look, we think what we've seen is the office clearly has a place, right? And most large companies acknowledge this. They want offices to be a center of culture and innovation for their organizations. But everyone's still trying to figure out what is the right mix. How many days a week are we in? What do we tolerate? How do we want to structure these teams? And that uncertainty's been a weight on leasing as of late. But we are still seeing deals, deal flow in the sector. But where are we seeing it? It's really in certain segments of the market. And so, for example, next to our office in Manhattan, record rents, $200 a square foot for office. I mean, mind-boggling. Setting records, completely leased. And we're seeing that across the country, not the $200, but just in that prime set of buildings. It really is a tale of two cities, so to speak. Prime buildings continue to perform extremely well, despite all of the negative headlines. And then kind of everything else is languishing. And so one of the things that we're telling folks is where we think there's going to be interesting opportunities, and I'd be interested to get Jim's and others' take on office and which Jim? Yeah, more Jims per capita than I would do that anywhere that I've ever been. But we wouldn't have it any other way. We wouldn't have it any other way. But anyway, what I was going to say is, so you got that sort of top tier trophy prime, but what we're starting to see is demand spillovers, actually, where the availability and vacancy is so low in that property type that we're starting to see that kind of next tier starting to benefit, but it's got to be located in the right places with live, work, play dynamics, things of that sort. That's really the sweet spot where I think there's going to be some interesting opportunities from an investment perspective going forward. But then the other thing is to take into consideration, and the reason why we think those demand spillovers are going to continue is because if you look at the construction pipeline in office, falling off the cliff, and for good reason, right? You have both interest rates and questions about demand outlook, et cetera. And so that's why we think that those opportunities in that next tier down are going to persist, and there'll be some interesting opportunities there as well. So a few things to kind of keep an eye out for in Albuquerque that are happening nationally. Go ahead.
So do you think it makes sense for people in that next tier of space to put in as many improvements as they can?
Absolutely.
To upgrade their space, or are they going to see some benefits regardless of whether they upgrade or not?
No, I still think you do need to, you need to be smart about it, right? I mean, the market is demanding.
Now you just killed it.
No, look, I think the market's demanding a certain level of quality and an environment that actually fosters that culture that people are trying to, right? They're saying, if we're going to spend all this money, like we want it to have an impact on our organization. We want to have it, be a talent retention pool, et cetera. So, it depends on the asset, of course. I'm not talking about huge amounts of capital investment, but to the extent that you can,
Switch it up.
Yeah, exactly. Dress it up a little bit. You're going to be well advantaged in doing so. This is how I would do it. So we'll go ahead and continue on here. And the reason I wanted to show you this chart is this is really interesting. So this light green line is office employment. And what you can see is occupied office space and employment largely tracked throughout history, right? And then here's the pandemic, and then look what's happened. So this just really illustrates that sort of structural shift in demand and the impact that hybrid work is having on the office market. It's really problematic, but that's not to say that there's not any demand and there's not any opportunity, because I think people are beginning to understand that office is sort of going through what retail went through in the 2010s. In fact, I can remember talking about this the very first conference I ever spoke at in Albuquerque in the 2010s. It was a retail conference, and we were talking about just kind of the retail apocalypse. And now retail is in a completely different position. Why? Because that construction pipeline shut off, the economy kept growing. A lot of the outdated retail was repurposed, which I think you'll see the same kind of dynamic happening in office. And now it's got incredibly strong fundamentals. You can underwrite positive leverage in retail, where it's more difficult to do so in industrial and multifamily. And so I think office, it's fair to say, is in a period of adjustment, but I would say it's down but not out, is how I would characterize office right now. Let's go ahead to the next slide. But here, what you can see is the impact of that last chart. We continue to see vacancy increasing through next year, and asking rents are going to continue to come down nationally. Go ahead to the next slide. And this is just to drive home that point that I was talking about the new supply really trailing off. So you can see this is 24. You can see where we were in the pandemic. We're well under as much new office space under construction. So that dynamic of strong demand at the high end of the market, low new supply, it's going to create demand spillovers. Again, that sort of underpins our thinking on where there are opportunities in the office sector. So we'll go from there, and we'll just do a quick brief overview of the capital markets, since that's what I do. I'll give you a little bit of insight there, and then we'll continue on. And one thing I will say is that this year we are seeing that investor sentiment. So you can see this is early 2023. It is trending up in the right direction. I would say this year is a fundamentally different investment landscape than last year. Talked to several folks before all of this began, and I think there's a similar sentiment in Albuquerque that there is nationally, and that's that folks aren't quite ready to move in a lot of regards. Still very difficult to make certain things pencil out, but they are getting ready to move. They want to have that first mover advantage. So as soon as they're confident that interest rates are coming back down, we're jumping in. They want to make sure that they're ready to take advantage of all the cyclical opportunities. So no surprise there. That said, lending standards, they still are relatively tight for commercial real estate. So banks are still very conservative, as well as other lenders right now as well. And speaking of lending, this is a question that I get asked a lot. Is folks are asking, is commercial real estate going to, cause problems like we saw with residential real estate in, 2008, 2009? The answer is no. We don't see any systemic issues there. There are going to be some substantial losses. You'll see a lot of smaller community banks in particular that have too much exposure to the office sector or other parts of commercial real estate. They'll get gobbled up by stronger banks. Some of them might fail, but we don't see a systemic issue here. But what we are really seeing is, if you look at this, that $271 billion, that just magically appeared. So we know from all of these surveys that the Mortgage Bankers Association does, how much is going to be maturing in commercial real estate loans every year. And so that $271 billion is the difference between last year's survey and this year's survey for loans maturing this year. And last time I checked, there aren't a lot of one-year commercial real estate loans. So what does that tell us? These are loan extensions that are going on, and that this is being encouraged by regulators. So we're going to see the can being kicked down the road. I think that that's actually a healthy thing, right? This isn't an environment that's going to persist forever. And this is, something that will play out over the course of several years, but it's not going to be anything catastrophic. And so what do we see in terms of, total investment activity? We think we're probably going to be flat for the year. We think we'll start to get a little bit more traction, particularly in the fourth quarter, because we think that the first rate cut should materialize by then. But we think we're going to be flat year over year. So you can see on a historical basis, we're back to like 2013 levels on investment for all of the.
Can we go back to 2021 or 22? Can we take a vote or?
We got to talk to that guy who invented the QR code. He seems pretty smart.
Have him work.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have him work on it. Look, we think cap rates are also cresting right now. We think they're going to start coming back down. They're going to come back down more slowly than they have in the past recoveries. And that's simply because we don't see interest rates coming down very quickly either. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So how do cap rates come down? They're not even using the borrowing costs.
Well, look, here's the thing. What we're looking at is an environment where, number one, interest rates will come back down. Right? We're not talking anything dramatic.
It's just token. It's just token.
They are token. Yeah.
When you talk about a quarter, another quarter, that's nothing.
By itself. Like I said,
When you double, when you go from 4% rate and borrow to 8.5 or whatever day,
yeah,
but you get a token quarter here there. That's not a big deal.
No, that's a psychological. Like I said, what really matters is where the 10 years at, and we know that if the 10 years closer to 4%, that's going to solve a lot of problems and challenges for underwriting.
It was close to 4% in February, January. And then it just jumped out. I thought it was going to keep trending.
No, that's right.
And then it just went back up.
And the reason it went back up is because we had some inflation data that was, a bit stickier than we would have liked. Now, I would actually argue that a lot of that inflation data, there are some seasonality issues in the data that are sort of left carryovers from the pandemic. And so we're actually much more confident in the back half of the year. But the thing is, look, you get an environment where we do expect, the 10-year to be closer to 4%. As of today, that's a 60 basis point move. That's not immaterial. And the reality is, there's still a lot of dry powder. We still have record amounts of dry powder.
You think the dry powder is a little disappointed though? They're looking for more.
But they
Better value, better value.
Well, to that point, there's been a lot of capital that's been raised for opportunistic
That's kind of city.
strategies.
It's still city. It's still means that, right?
Yeah, it's still out there. But the point is, there's still a lot of capital out there, right?
So they may just say, hey, we're okay with this lower rate. We'll take it.
I think
Or staggered, laddered out.
I think particularly in industrial and multifamily, to your original point, people are still willing to underwrite with negative leverage for, a short period of time.
Not from the CBRE.
Yeah, that's not in every market. But there is a willingness out there in those particular property types. But my point is, we're going to see this environment shifting through the rest of the year. We think values have largely bottomed. You might see some incremental movements, particularly like in the office sector and whatnot. But even in the office sector, I talked to a lot of our guys out in the field, and they're pretty adamant. They're like, we've pretty much bottomed. And so, we think that environment's going to be turning, but we don't see cap rates like meaningfully compressing in the next 12 months. Yeah, that's a fair point. But I think a lot of that speaks to the excess capital that's been sloshing around. So, okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's just wrap up with Albuquerque very briefly, and when we look at what we're forecasting for Albuquerque, like you highlighted, we've got positive population growth. That's fantastic. The unemployment rate might creep up a little bit this year. Nothing really material or to get worked up about. but we do see that coming up. And then in terms of office and industrial across the fundamentals, the reason I made this slide so simple is simply because the same things that are playing out nationally are sort of playing out here. Industrial is quite healthy, office has its challenges, no huge surprise there. In terms of economic growth, what do we see in Albuquerque? We actually, so just so you know, oh no, go ahead. Yeah, the next slide there. So Albuquerque is the light green one here. So you can see, we actually see growth beginning to improve and being pretty close to sort of the national and state averages going forward over the next couple of years. And then this is just simply showing that demand dynamic between office and industrial. So you can see the gray bars are showing where our forecasts are. We're forecasting pretty healthy positive absorption in industrial and office. It's a bit more of a mixed bag there. Now, again, remember it's a more nuanced story than what some of these, certainly what the headlines would say, but also more nuanced than even what some of these charts would indicate. So the way that I would sort of wrap all of this up is to say, look, we've been in a period of extreme uncertainty. As a forecaster, I can tell you this has been a very difficult environment to forecast in, and we've gotten sort of accustomed to being wrong. Now we've been directionally correct, but the timing of these things is always a little bit tricky. But the bottom line is we think that we will see a soft landing. We're in that softish landing camp. The longer interest rates stay higher, so if we get some inflation data that's staying a little bit sticky, that actually increases the tail risk that we might get a worse slowdown or a greater slowdown than we anticipate. So that's something to keep an eye on. But we generally think like inflation is going to be trending down. We think we'll be pretty close to the Fed's target sometime in 2025 for the end of the year. And that's going to allow the Fed to start cutting, which is an important psychological marker, but it's also going to be an important cue to the long end of the curve to start bringing interest rates down. So around 4.1% for the year. So I would say, on balance, the outlook is actually trending more positively for commercial real estate. And even in the sectors where there are challenges like office, we still see there are segments within that marketplace where there are compelling opportunities. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or just hand it back to Jim.
So you see potentially some of these offices that would seed and languish, any conversion to those that you potentially like data center or other things, or anything creative, or what do you see happening with those offices that continue to have high vacancy?
So that's a super question. It's a super good question. So the question was, what do we see happening in those offices where we see really high vacancy rates right now? Do we see them being potentially converted into data centers, other types of creative uses, et cetera? And the answer is yes, but it's not going to be uniform, and it's not going to be in every market. So for example, in New York's one of the few places where an office to resi conversion can take place without any subsidies, because you can get $95 a foot on residence, right? And so you can actually make those things pencil out. So the challenge is, can actually pencil out in a place like Albuquerque, Denver, San Antonio, name whatever other city you're talking about. But one thing that I would actually call everybody's attention to is what the city of Calgary has done in Canada. And the reason I mentioned Calgary is, Calgary was in a position, if you guys recall, when shale, fracking became, really big in the U.S. That was 2014, 2015. Oil prices tanked, and Calgary was, very dependent on the energy sector, and so, their office vacancy rate before the pandemic was up around 20%. Okay. And then the pandemic happens, all these hybrid work things, all the shifts in behavior, and it was pretty clear to the city that we're not coming back from this, and our city's going to die if we don't do something. And so what have they done? They actually have a very generous program where you can get subsidy up to like $75 Canadian a foot toward conversions. Most of the research we've done, it's probably close between $50 and $150 in subsidy that's moved in U.S. markets. But they provided a generous subsidy. They cut a ton of red tape. We've got 2 million square feet that's being converted. They'll probably get up to 6 million square feet converted in the next couple of years. And it was originally targeted at office to resi conversions. But they just recently expanded it to say anything with marketing. So if you want to turn it into a data center, a theater, a school, anything of that sort, you can qualify for these kinds of subsidies. And they're, the proof's in the pudding, right? The data actually tells us this policy is working. I think other cities you'll see follow suit, even if not quite as generous. You'll see it. I'm not willing to predict how big that's going to be in the U.S. yet, but it wouldn't surprise me to see some more of that stuff.
Do you think, I mean, you think it'll have a meaningful impact on this older generation of office over time, or
Over time, I mean, look,
it takes it out of the.
over time, this stuff's going to either be torn down or repurposed.
Yeah.
Right?
So it could be a good thing.
Yeah, and like I said, I really think that there are some, I don't want to over exaggerate it, because there are some valid parallels between what retail went through and what, office is going through. I mean, we've all seen malls that we grew up with that got torn down or, completely repurposed and those kinds of things. And like I said, now today, retail's got, some of the best fundamentals of any commercial real estate. And so this is going to play out over a period of years. And I think you'll see all of those things take place. It was a good question. All right, everybody, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Darren. Okay, so it is all fine and good to have a great labor force and to have great institutions that we're dealing with and to have market dynamics working in our favor and CHIP funding. But at the end of the day, we need places to put these people. So I would like to call up the three, I believe, largest landowners for commercial space in the region up to the stage. And we are gonna have a panel discussion from those developers that are gonna be providing sites for all of these new jobs that Danielle is going to recruit. And so Kim has told me that I had to read their bios exactly as I've written them. So we have in the middle, Brian Patterson of Titan Development, who is filling in for Mesa del Sol's Steve Chavez. Steve would have loved to have been here with us, but he's getting hip surgery from doing his happy dance on how well Mesa del Sol's doing. So he's trying to recover from that. And as a consequence, we got stuck with Brian. Brian's a partner at Titan, focused on industrial you do all that stuff? Multi-story, yeah. Brian's expertise is sourcing great happy hour sites, fine dining establishments, and oh, by the way, has over 15 years of real estate development experience across several asset classes, overseeing $350 million in home development. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Patterson, let's give him a hand. Our next contestant is Nancy Schmierbach of Union LLC. Nancy is a fourth generation Union family member who the Unions have basically built the community of Las Vegas. Their vision has turned a sleeping ranching community into a vibrant community for young families and a welcoming location for new businesses into their community. Her position is co-managing partner of Union Family Businesses with the assistance of a couple advisors and governmental friends and colleagues, has led to the location of such companies as Facebook, Amazon, and a multitude of others to the New Mexico region. Ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Schmierbach, let's hear it. And last and potentially least, Jeff Garrett of the Garrett Development Corporation. Jeff grew up in Albuquerque, and apparently, I haven't gotten the full story, but had to leave for various legal reasons. Went to Phoenix and started his life anew, shall we say. Has been quite successful at doing so, and so much so, and such a loving person that he wanted to come back and is now the largest commercial landowner in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Garrett. See, that wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be. We'll go in reverse order. And Jeff, I'm gonna, or do you want me to go in the right order? Okay. Yeah, so this is Jeff's publicity photo. We had actually asked him to, wear a box tonight and, do a little hole. Anyway, Jeff, you want to give us an overview of what you're doing with the Garrett Development Land Holdings on the west side?
Sure. And I'll give you, I don't think, do I need it? Oh, yeah. Talk about it. All right, is this okay? All right. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation. So we own 53,000 acres, about 83 square miles on the west side of town, both on the north side of I-40 and on the south side of I-40. On the south side of I-40, we have 14,000 acre zone. It's a very popular zoning case. It's called Stanley. It's been
Very popular.
the whipping post of all zoning cases ever. It raised more money for progressive politicians in the state of New Mexico than you could ever imagine.
So you're doing your part.
Yes, that was my contribution.
There you go.
It was maybe a little aggressive, zoning 14,000 acres at one time. But it happened. So we have what's like called a level A there, and then on top of the level A, that's like a general plan that you find in Arizona. And then on top of the level A, we have 6,400 acres that's kind of a PUD, a planned urban development. So
I thought you were dissing. Okay.
no, I'm dissing you.
Okay.
So this piece here, we have some water in it, but we don't have our water development agreement yet with the water authority. Down here, we have on the north side of 98th Street, we have the lower petroglyphs. We probably have 500 acres left in there with water, sewer installed, lots of infrastructure in the ground. We'll be greening out some listings on that, on retail portions, multi-family portions, and stuff like that. And then really the subject matter today of being site readiness, we have what's called the upper petroglyphs and at I-40 and Trisco Vista is the on-off ramp. And up there we have 6,000 acre zone and we have a water development agreement on it. So, and we have $58 million worth of infrastructure in the ground. That's water, sewer, and drainage and roads. We're about to build another $15 million water line from here. It's at like Ladera up into and connect to the Double Eagle Airport water system. We have 1,000 acre zone and ready to go. We have on this side, on the east side, we have residential lots. We have about 7,700 residential lots. I'm trying to make sure I cover all your questions here. Some of them, please. Am I close? And do you want to ask more questions later?
Yeah, I'll ask you questions.
Okay, all right. Let's turn it over.
Yeah. No.
Next, we're gonna hear from Nancy. Oh, let's hear it from the picture.
That was better than I thought it was going to be.
So now we're gonna hear from Nancy Schmierbeck about the honey, the Huning.
Yeah.
So, our property is the Huning Business and Technology Park, and it's located 4 miles west of I-25 on the north side of State Road 6, west of Los Lunas. And we actually still have cattle in this area grazing.
So some of that 200 head of cattle.
Right, we're adding to that. Yeah. We let him graze occasionally. So, in my bio, when I said, that we sold the land to Facebook, and our newest land sale is the Amazon warehouse and distribution center, I made sure that I included our advisors at CBRE and the Village of Los Lunas, which they've been a dream to work with. And I know there's other state agencies that have really helped to make these projects happen. So I can't say, oh, look what I did. You know, all I did was sell the land. A lot of other people helped make this happen. And this business and technology park, now that I see Will sitting over there, I can't exclude Denver Parish Sabatini because they helped us design the business park plan, along with infrastructure planning and the whole shebang. So it's been great working with them to, you know, create this vision. So it's just over 700 acres. And when Amazon came in, we managed to build what is Pioneer Trail, which has water and sewer in it. And so that helps us to have utilities available to some of these other adjacent sites. Since it's on State Road 6, it's accessible to I-40 to the west, and it's only like a half-hour drive from Albuquerque, depending on how fast you drive.
Depending on whether Trevor's driving.
Right. And also it's within a mile of single-family residential, and of course, 2 and 3 miles to other single-family residential. And we have some multi-family residential planned in the works, so hopefully that will happen. As far as employment opportunities in the business park, any user that requires a large parcel of like 100 acres or more. So that could be manufacturing, it could be data centers, it could be technology developers, film production. I know I'm going to leave something out here.
Aerospace.
Aerospace, sure. Trevor and Matt didn't give me that one, but yeah, aerospace. Yeah, so really the possibilities are endless. What else am I supposed
I
to say?
think that's it.
Okay, all right, I'm done.
Thank you.
So much for that, per message. So, and next we have Brian Patterson, who does not look anything like Steve Chavez, or his picture there. Brian, do you want to first explain the relationship between Titan and Steve Chavez's operation, and then give us a little overview on Mesa del Sol?
Do you want the truth or just the answer?
Never let that get away a good story.
So, Brian Patterson with Titan Development, we entered an agreement with Steve Chavez of Mesa del Sol late Q4 last year to do single-family residential, actually all residential in Mesa. Allowing him to focus on the job creation, the big economic drivers, which I've got some notes from him and I'll share with you, which is awesome. But let me quickly give you a little bit of history about Mesa, the residential side. I'll talk about the commercial side, and then really the site readiness component of this. As Jim mentioned, Steve is out today. He had a hip replacement. It's not from dancing. He said it's from years of kicking ass. So I just wanted to share that. So Mesa del Sol was started in 2005. That's when they had the level A approved. Let me get out of the way. Sorry about that. And that is the large blue mountain. What you're seeing there is roughly 13,000 acres. There is a level B approved. That is this red dashed area. That is basically 3,200 acres. And that's what's currently out there right now. What Titan has done and how we got involved is with a single family residential component. The first kind of neighborhoods, which actually worked back in the day when I worked at Bohemian Houston, 2006, 7, is a montage 1 and 2 along University Boulevard. That one, as we are working right now with a couple of the home builders to finalize the montage development, about 180 acres, 872 homes. We should see full completion of construction as far as infrastructure done this year. And we're also starting land planning with the next set of residential subdivision. And that's with the Artiste neighborhood. It's about 200 acres directly west that can serve up to 1,000 homes. With that, we are also talking to a lot of build-to-rent groups. The big thing for us, and it aligns with Steve, is sustainability. It's different types of residential, which I'll talk about. It's also different types of commercial uses. His background, I think it's important to know, and why it's important to Steve, and I've heard this a lot, and I'm sure many of you in this room have heard it. He grew up in grants, and grants with the uranium mines, when that closed, just crushed it. And so his vision, which I love the vision, is different sort of users, different sort of residential components. It's just a lot of variety and diversity. So with that, currently right now, Encantado is 300 units of multifamily that's under construction. I believe the first units will be delivered here in the next couple of months. We are also, as I said, build-to-rent groups. We are also land planning and laying out affordable housing locations. So we really want the full spectrum of housing. As far as the commercial, and this is, I've got 20 different bullet points, which from a guy is from Albuquerque, born and raised here, actually worked on projects, 15 years ago. I was blown away with the amount of growth and activity that's happening out there. So I'm just going to give you a sampling size of what's going on out there. So later, let's see, there's 450 units in this town center. So I'm going to assume most of you have been in Mesa del Sol. The really amazing building is called Aperture Center. Just south of that is this town center. This is where 450 units, 5 stories, will be located on 10 acres. Sometime next year, that will start. Kairos Power, who's already out in Mesa, is doing an expansion, another 100,000 square feet. Obviously, everyone's heard about Maxion, what's going on there. That is an August groundbreaking. It's planned. First phase, $1 billion, 1,400 jobs, 125 acres. So hopefully that happens. Star Scientific, the governor actually talked about a little bit today in the NAB mentioned through there. It's an Australian hydrogen group, 600 units, fourth quarter of this year. They're looking to do 100,000 square foot manufacturing space, lab space. Rose's Paper, local companies expanding, doing 120,000 square foot and 24 acres. MQ Technologies, that is a molecular quartermaster. I don't know what that is, but I'll let you know. That is 135,000 square feet manufacturing with 75,000 of office and lab space on 55 acres. Jobs is important, 300 jobs. One thing that is important that they're working on right now is within the Aperture Center is going to be called the post-production lounge. That's going to happen later this summer. Our construction will start. That's going to be a high-end wine and cocktail lounge. What the vision is bringing additional amenities and services. Right now with the 500 or so homes that are out there, is providing services to Netflix, to the Maxion executives. With that, Q3 this year, he'll be breaking ground on the Striker high-end condos, which is, construction costs he's quoting, which is insane, $1,200 a square foot. Other service, spa, coffee shop, etc. So high-end condos in this area. New Continent, Q4 this year is a wafer manufacturing. It's $1 billion investment, 1,200 jobs, 200 acres. Project Apollo is a solar company. That's going to be located on the west side of I-25. Netflix, the ongoing expansion that they're doing. One thing that's happening now with the full build out of Montage, with the apartments that are coming in, with what's going on, in my opinion, there's 300 to 400 rooftops away from the services actually coming in and falling. That is the convenience store. That's the start. That's the conversations that are happening now. Hotels planned, 250 key Marriott 5 hotel is in the works. So a lot. There's a lot of activity, which is really exciting. Just to finalize, is site readiness. I know that's always a big topic. Mesa del Sol, actually this week, signed a lease to install 3 more cell phone towers. So if you've been out there, cell phone service is pretty awful. So McKinsey, one of the home builders of Plaza Homes, we'll be happy to hear about that. Really great ongoing coordinations with the Water Authority. And making sure with all the users, not just the residential, but the high water users, will be served, and a lot of agreements are in place. Infrastructure, site readiness, infrastructure is the biggest thing. With Maxion and some of these other things, Maxion, if you don't know, is located kind of the south end of this employment center. What that's going to do is going to force the expansion of University Boulevard. If you've been out there, Mesa's very flat, so they get stuff to drain, sanitary sewers, storm drainage, that sort of thing. There's going to be a wastewater treatment plant being installed, a lift station, the water, all that infrastructure. What that's going to do, not only is that going to serve all the commercial uses on the east side of the university, it's going to open up the next 1,200 acres of residential with that infrastructure. So pretty excited about that. See a gentleman in front wearing an APS shirt. Ongoing conversations with APS about identifying potential school locations. We had a great meeting last week with them. The international charter school that we used to be in a couple portals is in a brand new building, full capacity with the waiting list. So that's a great thing. The biggest thing that I was not aware of, and I'm very excited to talk about, is the future interchange. So, which is located kind of in this general location. As you guys probably saw in the news this week with the F-35 that crashed over at Kirtland. What that did is that closed University Boulevard. And if you're local, you've been here a while, the access to, back in the day, to the amphitheater was through Bobby Foster, that's actually a driveway. That's not a road, it's an easement, it's a long ass driveway with a bunch of cracks in it. So there is ongoing discussions, and here I'm hoping, 36 to 48 months, this interchange will start, which will totally change the Mesa. So you go out there for a concert, it's a shit show. Can I say shit show?
Yeah.
I say shit show.
What you did.
I did. You get a new access, that will change the total environment of this neighborhood. And so we're really excited to be a part of this process. What the vision's happening with the borough. In my opinion, if 50% of these projects that he's working happens, it's a game changer for the city and the state. So, thank you.
So speaking of interchanges, Nancy's project has a interchange being worked on south of Route Highway 6. And Jeff's project is in dire need of an interchange in a highway called Paseo de Volcan. Remember that name. So we are sort of still in need of more infrastructure to promote these projects and to have them live up to their full potential. Jeff, what do you think is sort of the biggest need that your project has to be able to deliver a site to an end user quickly?
Well, Trisco Vista right now is our on-off ramp, and Trisco Vista needs to be expanded from Central on the south side up to Ladera, just to Ladera. So right where the Tempur-Pedic is, right, and the Amazon is. So getting that up to 4 lanes right now would be very beneficial. We have 2 deals. That's Paseo del Volcan that we want. So that's a federally approved, the EIS is federally approved, and that project's to be like the 303 loop in Phoenix. Where? In Phoenix. And so it'll go from here, and it'll go up to the 550 and tie back into Interstate 25. So it's a great asset. It's been around. It's, basically the Sandoval County line is all under work. The first third of it's built, and the second third's in the works with the DOT. What we're going to do first, though, is expand. We're going to go from the Trisco Vista here and tap into the Paseo del Volcan alignment. But so the first piece we need is right here at Road. That would be good to get. And the truth is, and I can answer this this is kind of answering a future question. So political support for that would be really important. I have the political support. I actually sat with Congress
people and senators in the county's office on January 2nd, and the legislators promised to deliver the county $40 million for that road, and the county refused to take it. And I don't know why. And
That would be our county.
that would be Bernalillo County, refused to take the money.
That's not
And-
Maricopa.
No. Maricopa would have taken it. That would have been built. So that road is really important. We need to get it in the ground. There needs, we need to get the bureaucrats, the politicians need to get the bureaucrats under control. I wish we were down there. I mean, what they do down there, as fast as they do that, is amazing. And I'm probably in the most difficult category. You're better, you're in the city, but it's just very, very difficult to do anything. I know I just bad about them, but I will say something good about them. Now that these entitlements are where they are, the Amazon building you see out there, the 100-footer, it's 100 feet in the air, it's 5 stories, it's 3.2 million square feet. It needs a special fire suppression system. We met with the county the middle of December 2019. We pulled a permit and we're building that building in March. We went straight to building permit. Everything that we have entitled, you do not need to do a site plan on. You can pull a permit. I have a permit ready. We're building a 200,000-foot building for Array Technologies, and I have that permit ready and I got it in 2 months. So they are delivering, once you get the entitlements and the plats in place, they are delivering the construction drawings extremely fast. So I really appreciate that.
In the interest of time, I realize I'm kind of keeping everyone from the bar back there. So we're gonna probably close this up a little bit early in interest of getting to the bar. But one of the things that I wanted to point out is historically, without any kind of assistance from our friends in the government, most of the land developers who have gone in and put in infrastructure no longer own those properties that they put the infrastructure in, because they lost them to the likes of, well, I won't mention you by name, Joe Sierra, but they've lost them to a lender, and they're now with the next owner. Wouldn't it be nice to change that cycle and actually get some governmental intervention so that it made sense to have sites that are ready to go with all the infrastructure in place?
Yeah, every bit of help that we've asked for from the government is for DOT controlled right away. And no one in the city has built DOT right away. Nobody built Louisiana on off-ramp on I-40. No one built any of the infrastructure we used to get here. Those were not developer pieces of infrastructure. We are building developer type infrastructure, but somehow the responsibilities of developers and landowners have grown into these regional pieces of infrastructure. And because of that, it really is choking up the system here. So, and it's not me. I mean, it's Del Sol, they need their own off-ramp. You guys need your own off-ramp. So these are DOT pieces of infrastructure. And if you look at the MERCOG plan, they're on the MERCOG plan and they say privately funded. And that just lets all the politicians off and the bureaucrats off of getting that infrastructure in the ground. That means it's not happening.
They like to show up for the groundbreaking and take credit.
Yeah. All the people that fought me showed up to both the Amazon groundbreaking, and those deals happened in spite of those people. That wasn't with their help.
You must not have told you that was for housing and future growth for their constituents.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure they would have changed their town.
they don't like that either. They didn't like housing. Housing is going to be a big infrastructure piece that socially we need to attract employers. And every employer I have on site requests where the houses and where they're going to be.
Okay.
Can I say one thing? When you guys talk about the village of Los Lomas and how easy they were to work with, when we were working on the Facebook deal and they were working on the industrial revenue bond, the council people, most of them were new. And one of the councilmen confided in me later, he said, I was scared to death. I was losing sleep over this because it was such a huge commitment. And David Buckholz, which I think most of you know, he really helped coach them through the process. So that's what I meant earlier about teamwork, a lot of people helping to make things happen. And then one of the differences between Los Lunas and Bernalillo County is our developments, they have to acquire water rights.
Yeah.
So that can be, depending on their water use needs, that can be a challenge for them.
While we've got this illustrious group of landowners, anyone have any questions from the peanut gallery? Other than Brad? Anyone but Brad? Anyone? Yes, sir.
I know this lady here, Nancy, she's, for many years, they've done so much for our community. I used to be the economic development manager for the village of Los Lunas. Their family has really stepped up to promote the growth in Los Lunas. So, you know, hands off to you, Nancy, and your family.
Ralph, is there a question in there? Is there a question in there?
No, I'm here more.
Oh, okay. I missed what part of the section this was. Yeah, okay. Seeing no other questions, I do see the bar back there. Danielle, do you want to wrap this up?
Sure. Well, I'll just give a big final thank you to all of you. Are you able to stick around for a few minutes in case people have questions or they don't want? All right. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for Darren coming out. Again, I really can't tell you what a huge lift. I mean, we've been getting emails from Kim working on this report at all hours of the night for the last, this is something that takes a couple months to put together. A lot of video production, editing, graphic design. So another big thank you and high five to the CBRE team and everything. Yeah.
I'm worried about my overtime bill.
Yeah. And then the last thing I would love, since I have people in the room that are breathing and still looking this way, the site readiness thing is a real issue. We're thinking about it in a very deep way, an area. What site readiness means, what's going on. I've talked about it a lot lately. We are bringing out some site readiness experts that are actually teaching this to government entities and partners to help them learn how they can do this. They're going to be out at our June luncheon and town hall. So if you're interested in that, please think about attending that, plugging in. We are going to be pushing the conversation on that and looking at what other competitive states and markets are doing to get this done. So please join us, please be an advocate on that effort, and go get a beer.
And I wanted to thank you, so if you come up and touch this, it'll then